Today's video, we're going to talk about, are discus hard to keep? Do they need soft water? And are they really prone to disease? We're going to answer those questions in this video. So the first question, are discus hard to keep? In my opinion, they're not. They do have some requirements. They prefer clean water. Yeah, you will notice that if you give them clean water, and I don't mean water change daily, maybe for adult discus we change the water once a week, but we have good filtration. And if you have them in a planted tank, you do need a cleanup crew. Corridoras, I do prefer. I love the stir-by with the discus because they can handle any fluctuations in the heat or temperature. And placos. The bristle nose are one of my favorites because I have never seen a bristle nose go after the slime coat of a discus. So as far as temperature, my recommendations are, if you keep Asian discus, keep them warm, 84 plus. If you do wilds, I keep my wilds anywhere from 76 to 82. They tend to like that temperature because in the wild they get major fluctuations as temperature. Even dropping in the water column, the water is going to cool down as they go lower, so they're fine with that. 78 is probably a good number to stick at as far as your low temperature, and 80 to 82 is probably the perfect temperature for the wilds or the hybrids like these. These guys are currently in 80-degree water, and they stay in 80-degree water. But sometimes I cool down my room because I want it to cool down, and I don't heat the tanks on these guys. The only time I heat the tanks is with the fry or the juveniles to make sure the metabolism kicks up so they can eat a lot of food. But as they get about 3 months, I drop that temperature down to the room temperature, which stays about 80 degrees, but I do drop it sometimes down to 75, 76 degrees. So another question I always get is, I don't keep discus because I don't like to keep soft water. Here's the thing with soft water, okay? Can you keep them in soft water? Yes. But my recommendation is, if you're going to do that, to make sure you get a good calcium, magnesium diet in them, because they do need that for their bones and structure of their body. If you just leave a discus in soft water all the time, they will eventually not do well without that supplement in their diet. And also, you know, we want to watch that pH because in soft water it tends to drop a little more. So my suggestion is to put crushed coral in a bag in the aquarium. Do not put the crushed coral inside a filter. What happens is, because the water's running over that crushed coral, it tends to dissipate faster or break down faster. By just keeping it in the tank water in a bag somewhere in the tank, it's only used as needed. So if the pH starts to drop, the crushed coral starts to activate. And in my experiments, now this is my experiments, at about 5 pH, the crushed coral starts to dissolve pretty quickly. And I've never got a tank below 4.7 with crushed coral in the tank. So most Amazonian species can handle that. So that's one thing with the crushed coral, is you want to make sure that it's always present in soft water. So these discus are actually in my tap water. They are hybrid discus. There's a wild in here, a Heckle wild. And my pH here in Utah is 7.8 to 8.2. It fluctuates. We'll call it an 8.0. And it fluctuates also with the hardness. 250 parts per million up to 300, and I've seen it even up to 320. So as far as consistency, water consistency is more important than water chemistry, right? And you just want to keep it consistent. That's kind of the secret. Now you can switch it up 6 to 8. I don't find any issues as far as switching my discus from a 6 to an 8. Slowly, of course, but a 6 to a 6.9, no issues at all, and that can happen pretty quick. 7 to a 7.9, no issues. But that range, I can usually switch from a 6 to an 8 in about a day or 2 days. I try to stretch it out, but sometimes I have taken Discus from my tap water and accidentally put them in soft water, not realizing the tank was that acidic, and they did fine. Probably caused a little bit of stress, but there was no deaths because of that. So that 6 to 8 range is kind of what you want to keep them in. I know that a lot of people say the 7 is the perfect. That is perfect as far as the medium, you know, the medium part where you want to keep them. And I agree with that 7 pH is excellent. But as far as up and down 6 to 8, it's fine. Okay, are Discus prone to disease? Not more than any other fish. I think why we are so hyper attentive to the Discus as far as disease is because of their cost. You know, we're spending a lot of money on these fish. I mean, you're looking at 9 fish here, and these are all potential high-end breeders. You know, I would value this tank at retail at about $1,500 to $2,000. So that's my valuation, but that doesn't mean someone's going to pay that. Definitely $1,000 worth of Discus, no problem, all day long. So, and we go into wholesale retail, that's a whole different story. All right, so as far as disease, I'm a huge believer in proactively treating your Discus when you receive them. Usually in a quarantine tank. This tank right here has actually been already treated with the levamisole. My fish have not been treated with levamisole, but the fish that I bring in are. And what I did is I basically took those fish and I put them in with my Discus before the praziquantel treatment. And that's, I'm going to be doing that actually today and filming the process. So that's something that'll be coming up in probably about 2 weeks. And we should have a couple of videos out before then. So if you want to see how I treat praziquantel for gill flukes, body flukes, and tapeworm. Now tapeworm isn't something that you see very often, but I have seen it. But the body flukes and the gill flukes, they are a huge problem. And it took me years to figure out the right way to treat those. Again, most of the medications that are sold over the counter are not strong enough. And one thing about prazi is it's pretty gentle on the fish. I've never had a fish really stress out using prazi. Even the prazi I use, which is pure praziquantel, and I don't use a liquid, I use a powder. And we'll kind of go over that in the video, how I break those powders down, because if you don't do it right, basically it just stays at the surface. And like all medications, light sensitivity is important in storing, but also treating tanks. You want to keep tanks low light, and it does make the medication more effective, but also it relaxes the fish. Why it's important to treat the fish with erythromycin after you treat for praziquantel, because the antibiotic effect is huge, because as you're killing off the flukes, so they leave hooks in the gills, and that is very irritating to the fish, but also it'll cause secondary bacterial infections, so you got to be real careful. And then what I do is I do that, and I'll go through that in my video as far as the full treatment, but also then there's a final salt treatment. The salt treatment basically takes care of, after the secondary, any fungus or fungal issues, but also relaxes the fish and gets the fish back to where they need to be to start recovering fully. Like all medications, I do a follow-up treatment in 21 days. Now with the prazi and the flukes, and just so you know, I have learned this not from a vet, not from a doctor, not from other hobbyists, not from the internet. I learned it from the koi community. Koi seem to have this problem a lot more than our aquarium fish, but once it's in our aquarium, it's almost impossible to get rid of, and that's one thing that I'm trying to learn how to do. Now, can I say it's 100%? Absolutely not. That would be very irresponsible and not ethical for me to say that. But so far in these treatments I have done and all the testing I have done is so effective. I don't see a reoccurrence of the fluke problem. But the koi community really helped me a ton, because, you know, the one thing that I had was a little different was obviously they're treating cool or cold water, and we're in warm water. So the warm water, actually the flukes reproduce even quicker. So they'll do it for almost a season, right? They'll leave their praziquantel in their ponds for weeks upon end, right? Maybe even months sometimes. Because it's always being introduced some way, whether it's by birds or whatever. But one thing that's nice about the heat and the flukes is they reproduce really fast. So it's a positive and a negative because it really infests the fish. And I'm almost positive I have flukes in this tank just by seeing rapid breathing, closed gill covers, and no scratching yet. So maybe I do, maybe I don't. But that doesn't matter because I do that anyways to treat my tanks proactively. And here's what's happening for me personally, and it might be different for other people, but this is happening for me, is once I treat for the levamisole and then I treat for the praziquantel with the antibiotic follow-up, so far I haven't had any major reoccurrences of any diseases as far as internal or external parasites. And it's the process, learning the process. So basically what I've learned is a 10-day treatment, and it's only 4 days of the prazi, and then like 6 days of the erythromycin and the salt. So as I'm making this video, when I shut down this video, they're going to be draining this tank and then treating this fish, and I'll be filming the whole process. So that'll be coming up probably in 2 weeks. So if you'd like to see that, you know, subscribe to the channel or just keep an eye out on that video for gill flukes. So if you've enjoyed this video and you want to see another video on this topic, check out this video here. The title is Discus Fish, Just the Facts. It'll kind of go over into a little more detail on what I was feeling 2 years ago when I made a video on this subject.